You joking?
We all thought he'd be out by now. Are they starting to get a little bit worried about all this?
People disappear all the time, but some vanish underground, literally.
It's this for 4 miles.
America's cave system is a vast labyrinth with 45,000 known caves and counting. Go deep enough and you cross a line from explorer to victim.
Search and rescue crews tried different methods to get John out.
One map shows America's caves. Another shows where people vanished without a trace. And the match is chilling.
A missing cave diver's remains have been identified after 21 years.
Cave stories fall into 2 types: epic escapes or slow, brutal deaths. This episode is about the second kind. We're looking at 3 of the deadliest caving tragedies ever recorded, and how you might survive what these cavers didn't. How can rain turn your exit into a tomb? Why did 2 teens dive into a tunnel they couldn't escape? And what made rescuers seal a cave with a body still inside? You're about to find out.
Claustrophobia, I'm kind of frozen right now.
John Edward Jones wasn't just a thrill seeker. He was a med student, a husband, and a father of 1, with another on the way. He grew up caving in Utah,
Here he goes.
but he'd never been to Nutty Putty, a deep cave system west of Utah Lake. Nutty Putty is a maze of tight twists and claustrophobic choke points. Basically, if you can't bend like a slinky with a headlamp, this cave isn't for you. At 8 p.m. on November 24th, 2009, John, his brother Josh, and a few friends arrive at Nutty Putty Cave. They're excited, but underprepared. The cave is more dangerous than they realize.
They weren't unfamiliar with caves, but they hadn't caved a lot in recent years. Also, Nutty Putty, they didn't have perfect information.
The group entered Nutty Putty Cave through a 30-inch opening, the only way in. They thought they'd crawl in, snap a few pics, and be home by midnight.
Howdy, partners.
Inside, things started off fine.
Okay, here we go. The Nutty Putty Cave.
The group explored a wide cavity called the Big Slide. Then, John and his brother decided to go deeper, toward a narrow passage called the Birth Canal, a tight crawl space that requires belly crawling and even rattles experienced cavers. That's where John made a wrong turn. Instead of veering right, he crawled left. Unaware, he was heading toward a narrow dead end. He spotted a tight opening, only 18 inches high and 10 inches wide. He slid in head first, thinking it would eventually open up.
In a constriction, going head first, you never want to end up really going down.
Unfortunately for John, he became completely stuck in the tiny, unmapped tunnel. John was upside down, 700 feet from the entrance.
It becomes much more of an emergency to get them out of that position because of those physiological issues that can come from having your organs push on your diaphragm.
And being trapped upside down isn't just painful, it's torture. In medieval Japan, they called it tsurushi. Blood floods the brain. The heart strains to keep up. Most people can't survive more than 6 to 8 hours. John yelled for help and his brother Josh found him, legs sticking out, pinned tight. Josh had to crawl out of the cave to call 911. He tried to pull him free, but it only made things worse.
He'd worked himself face forward through a series of tight passes to a point where he couldn't back up.
Within hours was the first expert on scene.
So you usually have what's called a hasty team. That's the first people that go in there, going fast and light. They bring some snacks, they bring some water, they bring some joy, just to get down there and see what's up. Then they'll come back to the surface and rescue plans kind of develop from there.
He was still very lucid. Just, Susie, I really want to get out of here. We're gonna get you out of here. Let's try a couple things. He was pretty thirsty.
Her assessment? This was serious. Call in the cavalry.
Unforgiving.
26-year-old John Jones went to BYU. Search and rescue crews tried different methods to get John
Gravity
out.
was really working against him, and he didn't have any leverage.
Earlier today, we all thought he'd be out by now. Are they worried? Are they starting to get a little bit worried about all this?
They're very worried. This man is about my size. He's around 190, 200 pounds and 6 feet tall, so a very large guy, and he's in this space only 18 inches wide.
The The surface was crawling with emergency workers, and John's wife, Emily, had arrived. By this point, at least 10 hours had passed.
One of the major issues with any sort of caver that is stuck is that they are touching the walls of a cave, which is actually a really good way to get hypothermic really quickly.
By the time I got here, I think John had probably been in 12, 15 hours.
Rescuers tried everything. Air hammers to widen the rock, peanut oil to grease John free. They even discussed breaking his legs. Nothing worked, and time was running out.
In a lot of cave rescues, you rely on the person being rescued to help out to some capacity. As soon as they can't help out at all, it becomes significantly more difficult.
Eventually, rescuers built a rope and pulley system to hoist John out.
So they want to look at, is there any loose rock, anything that may, fall or crush this person, may fall or crush us before we start working on the system.
Rescuers bolted a pulley system into the rock for more leverage.
It was their best and last option. At first, it worked. John began to inch out of the tight passage, but then, disaster. The anchor system snapped out of the cave wall. A carabiner violently whipped loose and seriously injured a rescuer. And John, he slammed back down even deeper. His legs were numb. Blood pooled in his head.
We just sat there in the cave and, what are you gonna tell people on the surface?
It then became obvious that they probably weren't gonna be able to do anything.
Rescuers tried to keep him calm, but his body was failing.
It's hard to say it's not a rescue anymore, it's a recovery. So I didn't sleep much after that.
And at that point, John was hallucinating and all kinds of other things as his body sort of broke down.
There was nothing left to try, and everyone knew what that meant. Brandon Kowalis went back in for one last check.
He was not responsive, and his feet started kicking, and then he was gone.
After laying upside down more than 24 hours, at midnight, Jones was declared dead.
John's body finally shut down. Blood flooded his brain. His organs failed. His death was inevitable, and it came before rescuers could get him out.
It was hard, emotionally, maybe one of the hardest incidents I've ever seen.
There are some that feel like they have failed our family, and we just want to say that we know that they have done everything in their means possible.
The trauma from the tragedy had a lasting effect on everyone involved in the rescue. So much so that after John's death, the landowner permanently closed Nutty Putty Cave.
Authorities eventually determined it was too dangerous to recover Jones' body.
There she goes.
Explosives were later used to collapse sections of the cave, sealing it forever.
As his final resting place, a plaque now sits at the entrance of the cave in John's memory.
Caving takes skill, and if you don't know your limits or how to self-rescue, you might be crawling into a death trap without even realizing it. And if you're new to caving, remember, it's an extreme sport deep underground, not a pickup soccer game behind your old high school.
But if you are in a cave that you have discovered and you are curious and want to go in, make sure that you have at least 3 forms of light and that you have someone on the surface that knows where you are and what you are doing. The best way to get out into caves, to meet other cavers, is to join your local grotto. So grottos are just another word for a caving club. You can find one that's close to you by going to www.caves.org. The caving community is really welcoming and open, and we're just excited to show other people our obsession and to help you do it safely.
Okay, that's a good advice, actually.
If you thought dying in a dry desert cave was terrifying, imagine getting trapped in an underwater tunnel so remote that it takes 21 years to recover your body. Like cave survival stories? Hit like and subscribe. More wild ones coming.
I'll see you on the other side.
Could have picked a better choice of words.
Jacob's Well is a geological wonder tucked away in Wimberley, Texas. A perfect, crystal clear swimming hole on a hot summer day. At least on the surface. But below, a sprawling maze of underwater tunnels, over 6,000 feet long and 120 feet deep. But one detail you won't find in the travel brochures, it's claimed at least 9 scuba divers, and counting.
It's a difficult cave to dive. Yes, they're always asking, how deep is it? How deep is it right here? Without the proper training, it could be deadly.
This deep spring is deceiving. It funnels into a narrow shaft, then drops straight down into submerged chambers. Tight, twisting, murky, with no clear path to the surface. And once you drift off course and your air gauge dips into the red, you can guess what happens next. Despite the risks, cave divers still come here from around the world to test their skills. But in 1979, 2 young men, Kent Maupin and Mark Brashear, didn't make it back. Kent and Mark were part of a 6-person dive team from San Antonio. Experienced and maybe a little overconfident. They skipped backup lights and extra safety lines. Small oversights that would cost them everything. After the descent, Kent and Mark reached the main passage easily. But instead of turning back, they pressed their luck, pushing deeper toward a notoriously tight zone known as Chamber 3.
There's areas in here that you literally have to take a tank off to squeeze through. Then again, there's areas big enough to drive a car or truck through if you could get back there.
Chamber 3 has a brutal reputation. One wrong move kicks up silt, and visibility drops to 0. Joe, one of the other divers, could see Kent and Mark were pushing it. He banged his knife on his tank, a warning. They didn't have enough air to make it back. No response. All he could do was shine his light toward the tunnel, hoping they'd follow.
The only thing you really hear is yourself breathing. Otherwise, there's no sound.
They were using guideline reels, standard cave diving protocol. A lifeline unspooling behind them, so they could find their way back in 0 visibility. But at some point, Kent's line snagged on a rock. Moments later, it detached completely. They were trapped. One tiny misstep had turned Jacob's well into a murky underwater maze. No exits, no landmarks, no clear path home. Then, panic. They were never seen alive again. The dive team realized quickly that Kent and Mark hadn't surfaced. With thousands of feet of tunnels, an immediate search was impossible. When police arrived, hope was already fading. Deep down, they knew the 2 friends were gone, but they had to try. One diver believed he saw their bodies buried in gravel. Rescue diver Don Dibble dove in to clear the passage. But the gravel shifted and pinned him. With no visibility and his arms trapped, Dibble ran out of air. He thrashed free just in time, but the rapid ascent gave him decompression sickness. His stomach wall ruptured. Doctors said it was like having 5 burst appendixes. Eventually, a team brought in a large hose to vacuum gravel from the cave, but the effort backfired. More gravel shifted, making it even more dangerous. With visibility near 0, the search was called off. The safest move was to seal the cave and leave the bodies in place. It would be nearly a decade before Mark's remains were found, washed out by the current. And another 11 years passed before Kent's were discovered in the cave's elusive 4th chamber, 21 years after they vanished.
True, everybody out there in the comments. Is that true? Nobody has ever survived this 4th chamber.
Challenge accepted.
I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm blown away that is the case. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Jacob's Well is still open to swimmers, but diving past the main chamber now requires special permits and top-tier certification. If cave diving's on your bucket list, remember, not all diving is the same. The deeper you go, the more prep, skill, and experience it takes. Squeezing through a pitch-black tunnel at 107 feet with a rebreather isn't the same as cruising a shallow reef. Never exceed your training, and always triple-check your gear. Most diving deaths? Running out of air, or equipment failure.
Wait, are you joking?
If underwater caves freak you out, imagine a cave that feels like a bathtub, with you still in it. Mossdale Caverns doesn't look like much, just a small opening in the ground beside a sheep field in the Yorkshire Dales of England. No fences, no warning signs, but underground, it's a labyrinth of twisting limestone tunnels considered one of Britain's deepest caves. Nearly 2 miles of passages, some stretching over 900 feet. It's also a flood risk nightmare. When a rainstorm hits Yorkshire, the entire cave system can fill in minutes.
In caves, especially caves that are pretty accessible, that have active flowing water, it's a really unique zone where there's a lot of interaction between surface water and groundwater. So although you might not see water rushing into the cave, water from the surrounding areas may be pushing the underlying water table up.
And if you're deep inside when that happens, like the 6 explorers in this story, you're basically trapped in an underground aquarium. But in 1967, a group of young British cavers weren't deterred. They were serious explorers, mapping uncharted systems. They even brought explosives to blast through blockages, hoping to go further than anyone had ever before. That morning, 10 people entered the cave. 6 pushed deeper into the system, while the other 4 stayed near the entrance, including Morag Forbes, fiance to one of the men heading in. Everything seemed fine, at first. Morag surfaced to check the weather. Dark, heavy clouds were rolling in fast, and the 6 men, including her fiance, were still well beyond the safe zone. Rain began pounding the ground, and Mossdale Caverns started to flood. If the storm didn't let up, the 6 men were as good as gone. Morag reached the nearest village and alerted authorities. Rescue teams mobilized fast, including caving legend Jim Eyre and dozens of volunteers. But when they got to Mossdale, the entrance was already submerged. The only way to reach those trapped inside? Swim 900 feet through a tiny flooded tunnel. Over the next 3 days, hundreds of people dug ditches, installed pumps, and built makeshift dams to redirect water flow. Eventually, the water receded just enough for a team to push through. The team reached one of the furthest points in the cave. It took 5 grueling hours to make their way through the 900-foot stretch, barely 2 feet wide in places. They were in uncharted territory, and what they were about to find would haunt them forever. The first 2 bodies were found in a tight passage. The tunnel was so narrow that rescuers had to pull themselves over the corpses. 3 more were discovered nearby, but there was still no sign of the 6th caver, John Ogden. He was never found. Outside, time was running out. The makeshift dam holding back floodwaters had already collapsed twice. If it failed again, the rescuers would be trapped too. 6 young explorers, all experienced, all dead because of one storm. Mossdale already carried a reputation for danger, but this was the first time it claimed lives. The local coroner called it an unbearable risk and ordered the cave sealed with concrete. No one's been allowed back inside since. The Mossdale tragedy proves even expert cavers are powerless against nature. If you're heading into any cave system, especially one prone to flooding, always check the weather. Then, check again. No cave is worth dying for. This episode showed how fast things can spiral when a safety line detaches, a storm hits, or a diver takes a wrong turn. These weren't thrill seekers. In a cave, one misstep is all it takes. Thinking about exploring underground? Bring the right gear.
Non-cavers get into caves and they don't have a light, or they're one light, they lose it, or it dies, and then they're lost.
Don't go alone, and never push past your training.
Having a surface watch, making sure that you're doing it in groups is really important.
Because in a cave, survival isn't just about bravery. It's about knowing when to turn back. Hit like and subscribe.
What the f was that?
Think surviving a dark cave is bad? Try doing it underwater, beneath ice, where a team of divers takes on Norway's deadliest cave system, and not all of them make it back. We'll see you next time on another episode of How to Survive.